Hello everyone, welcome back to PN and L channel, where we create content with practical IT solutions. If our videos are helpful to you, kindly subscribe to this channel. Click the thumbs up button and let us know in the comment section what you would like to see. In this video, we will be installing and configuring Keystone, which is responsible for user authentication and authorization access to OpenStack components. If the authenticated user has the appropriate permissions, then the user will be able to access resources. So let's dive right in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a Keystone database, which is going to be on MariaDB. Okay, so I'll have to log into MariaDB. Okay. So we log into MySQL by running the MySQL command. So we're in there. So now what we will do is we will create the Keystone database using these commands. So as you can see, we create the database and we grant privileges to Keystone user, and we flush the privileges. I am only using a single instance of my MariaDB because of my limited resources. I would have used Galera to build a redundant database server, but due to the lack of resources, I am using a single instance of MariaDB. So we've configured the Keystone database where all the information about the Keystone parameters will be stored. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install OpenStack Python client and also Python PyMySQL. Now that we're going to install this on all the controller nodes. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install Keystone parameters or software to configure Keystone. So we're going to install Keystone lib apache 2 mod wsg sgi -py3 and so on and so forth. We're going to install this on all the controller nodes. Okay. So the next thing is we're going to open the keystone.conf file on each of the nodes, and we're going to add the following parameters into the going to look for the backend. Okay, let's look for 414. Okay, so this is where we're going to add the backend. All right, I'm going to use some shortcuts for this, and then I will verify that for each configuration. I will verify the configuration, because it's very important we put those things on the right line. So I'm going to use this. So I'm going to open this. As you can see, this line is correct, because sometimes the parameters vary on each time you install Keystone in different versions. We're going to 428. Okay. Since it's correct on this one, it's going to be correct on the rest of the nodes. The next thing, we're going to add the memcache servers. We installed memcache in the previous memcached in the previous video. So as you can see, for load balancing and high availability, we have all the IP addresses of each of the controller nodes, which are 120, 121, 122, and the port number is 11211. Press enter. We double check. 445. Okay, that's correct. Go to So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the database credentials to so let us verify the IP address of the database. Okay, the IP address of the database is 118. Let me see. So if the IP address of the database is wrong, then we will have a problem later on. Let me confirm that. So I think I have to confirm the IP addresses. Hosts. MariaDB is 118. So we're going to change the 115 to 118. All right. Let me see what we used here. Okay. All right. So that is fine. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the database, since we've corrected the IP address. Oh no. Okay. So it's okay, that is correct. So we configure the same thing on the conf01 and conf02. Then the next thing is we're going to add the provider, which is called Fernet. 2558. Okay, so that is not correct. So this is what I was trying to point out. You see here, it was on the wrong line, so we have to do this. SE. So let's remove this one. So it's going to be 2560. So we're going to convert that. Okay, that's correct now. Okay, let's look at this one here. Just to be sure, because we don't want to run into issues subsequently. So we go to 2560. That's correct. So we're going to go to the other one and do the same thing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the certificates, the SSL configuration to the conf file. This is the certificate that we created earlier on, from the beginning. So if you see here, it's going to add this to or it's going to append this information to the keystone.conf file. So if we go to the keystone.conf file, as you can see here, that's where it's going to add the SSL configuration. So for the Keystone configuration, do that on all the controller nodes. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to populate the identity service in the database that we just configured, and we're going to only do this on the first controller node. If we do this on all the nodes, there will be number one, errors. Number two, there will also be duplicate entries in the database. So it's best for only one node to add this or to populate this the database with this. So we're going to run this. So I'm sure if we go to the database, something is not right. Here we're supposed to see the tables being populated, which nothing is showing up. So we will need to check the database to see what is going on. Did we miss something? So I can see that the reason why we're not seeing the The reason why we're not seeing the parameters in here is because we weren't able to connect to the database. So if I use this here and I type in the password, I'm supposed to be able to connect to the database from the controller node using the Keystone username. So what I did was I added this bind address equals 0.0.0 to the /etc /mysql /mycnf.cnf. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to MySQL, use Keystone show table. So now let's run that command again to populate the database for the Keystone service. So if we go here, so as you can see, we've now seen that the database is being populated with all the Keystone parameters. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to populate the identity service database on for FearNet using the Keystone manage command on the first controller. So we're going to set up the FearNet setup and then the credential setup. So we're going to run this command. And then that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy these keys that we just populated. We're going to copy the keys to the two controller nodes. So we're going to copy that here. Okay. Then we copy it to 02. Go. So now we're going to move those files because we copied those files to the /home/ultracom. So we're going to go to controller 01, move it. And do the same thing for controller 2 and 3. And we do the same thing again to copy and change ownership. We have to change ownership. Alrighty, so the next thing is we're now going to configure the bootstrap for the Keystone. So now so as you can see, we're going to bootstrap the project name, role name, service name, which is Keystone. Admin is the project name, and then the region is region 1, and the admin URL is we're going to be using the fully qualified domain for the virtual IP, and we need to bootstrap the admin URL, public URL, and the internal URL. So we're only going to run this on the first controller node. Okay, We also bootstrap the password, so this is the password we're going to be using. So you can configure your own password, but for the purpose of this video, that's the password we're going to use. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the server name on all controller nodes into Apache. So as you can see here, the server name for this one is this. So we're going to change the name 01 02. Okay, so next we're going to configure the site enable on in Apache. So we're going to create a file called keystone.conf, or let's just /etc Apache sites enabled, and then by default when you install Keystone, it creates a keystone.conf file. So we're going to add some parameters in here. So as you can see, this is going to be the same for all controller nodes. So we add that. So we're going to add the port number on Apache that Apache is going to be using to serve Keystone services via the web. This for controller 1, and controller 2. As you can see, the IP address is different. And then we copy it to the same for controller number 3. Okay, the next thing is we're going to add the SSL engine into Apache so that the communication between those files are going to be encrypted. So we're going to add that into this file here on all add this here. Okay, that is good. So here, as we mentioned earlier, this is going to allow the web service that Keystone is going to be using. It's going to be encrypted. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to enable the mod SSL on all the controller nodes, and then we're going to restart Apache. So I'm going to copy this. Okay. So the next thing is we're going to load the environment variable that we're going to be using to run the Keystone service. So we're going to create this here. We're going to export this on all the controllers. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to run this command. Alright, so next we're going to copy the SSL certificates and then we update the CA certificates. So what we're going to do is copy this here, updating the certificates. So okay, so next we're now going to test this, and we're going to run the user list to see if OpenStack is configured properly. Alrighty, as we can see, the admin user that we configured earlier on here. So the reason why we configure this is if we don't run this, if we didn't create this admin-openrc file and source it, we will not be able to run these OpenStack users, any of the OpenStack commands. Well, subsequently, we're going to run OpenStack commands for all other services. So if we go to the so as you can see, now we're able to display the users list on there. So as we create more users, we'll be able to display the users. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to allow OpenStack to, or should I say, we're going to integrate OpenStack into Active Directory. We're going to use the certificate we configured the last time in the previous video when we worked with Active Directory, but we'll work on that shortly. So we're going to go and add this to the keystone.com file. I'm going to add some parameters in there. That's going to be so here is where we're going to add the domain specific drivers for OpenStack. Okay, so we're now going to add this to the keystone.com file. So let us check and see. Okay, it's being added 1012 and 1027. Okay, we're going to configure that on the rest of the controller nodes. So in order for us to create the multi-domain support, we're going to create a domains directory and then change ownership. We're going to do that on all controller nodes. Make directory, press enter. So now we're going to create the Keystone domain for Active Directory directory service integration. We're going to use the NetBIOS name, value retrieved previously at the domain. So the domain that we used was the ultracom domain, ultracom.com. So the ultracom is going to be the NetBIOS name. So before we do that, so in order for it to log in, we're going to use the NetBIOS name. I will look for how to get this NetBIOS name, but for now we're going to create this. Okay, that is created. Okay, I'm going to show you how to retrieve the NetBIOS name from PowerShell. So just click on the Start button and open the PowerShell, and then run the get AD domain, select NetBIOS name, and press enter. So as you can see, this is the NetBIOS name, ultracom. So I'm going to close that. So we've created the ultracom domain. So if we now go to, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy the OpenStack.pem file that we created earlier on. So I'm going to go to WinSCP, and I'm going to copy okay. So I'm going to go to here and then copy this here and move it to ultracom directory. And I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of the Alrighty, so that is complete. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to convert the CER file to .pem file. So let's see what we have here. Okay, we're going to convert this CER file. We're going to convert it into a .pem file. So what we're going to do is we're going to use SSL x509 -in. This is the input file -out. We're now going to make it .pem. So we have it here. So we're going to do the same thing on the other nodes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to copy it into the /user. So we're going to copy OpenStack.pm. We're going to copy it into this folder. Going to do the same thing on all nodes. And then we update the certificates, or the CA certificate we update on all nodes. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to configure the Active Directory parameter for the Keystone. So I will demonstrate some things we have, some of the parameters we have here. So here, in order to get these parameters that we used here, we will go to Active Directory and we go to Administrative Tools, we go to Active Directory Users and Computers. When we click that, so here, groups. So if we look at this, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to create this user SVC LDAP, because that's what we're going to use to start cluster. Okay, let me reconfigure that, create a new user, and rename it SVC-LDAP. So we can ignore that, just say SVC-LDAP, and we click on next. So we ensure that password never expires. So we're going to use the password that is created here. As you can see here, it's password @123. Click next. We click finish. So if we go in here and we click on properties, so before we do that, we need to go here, actions, sorry, view, advanced features. So when we go into the DevOps groups, we go here, we click on properties, and what we're looking for is attributes editor. So if we go down here, you should be able to see the distinguished name. As you can see here, we can click on view. So this is the CN for the SVC LDAP. So we're going to copy this. Let me just make the correction there. And then we'll come back and okay, so as I was mentioning earlier on, so we got the URL to connect to the LDAP or the Active Directory LDAP service is we're going to be using LDAP-S, and the secure LDAP, which is LDAP-S, it uses the port 636. and ultracom.com is the domain name, and the user is, as we have demonstrated earlier. If we right click on it and we go to properties and we go to attribute editor, scroll down, and then we look for the distinguished name. That's what we're going to use as the username here. And the groups, if we go to groups here, the user tree DN, we go to properties, we go to attribute editor, and we go to distinguished name. So the DN here talks about the distinguished name. This is how we get the distinguished name from Active Directory. Then all the other parameters, and then we have the this here we need to change this certificates, because that certificate is wrong. So we're going to make the correction for the certificate. So what's the certificate? So this is the certificate right here. These are the things that we need to watch out for when we are configuring this, so that we will minimize as much error and cut down on troubleshooting time. Alright, so we copy that again. Okay, now we're good to go. Press enter. So that will create the file in /etc. Okay, so we configure the same thing on the other two nodes. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the Python 3 LDAP. If we don't install this, we will encounter what we call a module not found error. So we're going to install the Python 3 LDAP. Okay, Python 3 LDAP is installed. The next thing, we're going to install the LDAP pool. We're going to install that using this. We're going to install it on all the nodes. Okay, that has been installed. The next thing, we're going to change ownership of the keystone.ultracom.com file, which is for the domain. So as you can see here, so we're going to do that for all the controller nodes. We are going to next restart Apache. So next, we're now going to retrieve the list of all the groups in Active Directory, and this will prove that we're all good to go with OpenStack integration into Active Directory. You're running this for the first time, it's going to take a bit of time. So I'm going to pause the video for a bit. So as you can see, we are able to retrieve the groups that we created on OpenStack. As you can see here, OpenStack admin group, OpenStack group, and OpenStack software group. And also, if we do OpenStack user list, we should be able to get the user on Active Directory. No, it's empty. I'll check on that later on, but let us proceed. So we're going to create projects on OpenStack. We're going to run this only on the okay. Next, we're going to create software project on OpenStack. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the groups to these projects. So the first we're going to do is we're going to add the software group, which is this here. So we're going to use the ID. ID, and it's going to be member, because this is not this is just an ordinary group, so it's going to be member. So we're going to add that row. Okay, so next we're going to add the admin group to the DevOps project. So the same thing, we're going to copy the admin group ID and admin group. So the result of this is that the members of the OpenStack software group will be able to log into the dashboard using their Active Directory username and password. And then in the dashboard, which we will see subsequently, we will add the domain field to the dashboard. So now we're going to grant access to admin user in the domain. So what we're going to do is we're going to list the admin user, okay. So next we will now add the role, default user, domain, and then we use this ID and the admin role. So next we're going to create or generate a token, and that is the last thing we're going to do for this video. Add that, create a new token. So as you can see, we have generated the token that is going to be used to authenticate. Thank you very much for staying with me for this long. I hope this is informative for you, and I hope you'll enjoy this video, and see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.